everyone. The planning board meeting will come to order on March 17th. The first item is a bond release. Or first of all, Gina, are there no extensions, right? Everything's on the agenda is on? Okay. Yep. The first item is Walnut Ridge Cricket Lane Extension, a bond release. Can you give us the story there?
So the town is holding a surety bond on this subdivision. It's also known as Cricket Lane Extension, so you might know it as that 11-lot subdivision that was constructed back, or approved back in '99. There has been a release to date of about $72,000. It started at $131,000. The applicant is requesting a release, which the DPW has supported, in the amount of $35,700, bringing a balance to $16,600. The street has not been accepted yet, so the intent of that balance.
Okay, so is the request for a release of a specific amount? And it's a surety bond, it's not a cash bond?
It's a surety bond.
Okay, so it would be a reduction in the amount of the surety bond by?
With leaving a balance of $16,600.
Okay. Okay. And DPW is fine with it?
Yep,
Are you okay with it?
Yep, I have a letter from Tim Willett. They've started, actually, some of the approval process for street acceptance, but they won't do it in time for this year. So their intent is to come.
There's enough money left to do all the stuff related to that?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Just, I noticed that there was grass seeding still being held back, and that's a 1999 project, 17 years later.
Yeah, so Tim Willett visited the site, and that's his recommendation.
Okay.
Would you like to make the motion then?
I'll make a motion to reduce the surety bond down to $16,600 for Cricket Lane Extension, also known as Walnut Ridge.
Okay.
Second.
Good. Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
You can contact me tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes. And won't be accepted.
Okay, we got a couple Form As. That's exciting.
No? So we can go to Chris Herrick? Okay. So if we go to the 5975 Summer Street. Chris, you can come on up and explain this. So this is a Form A. The dotted line shown here is actually creating parcel A. It's marked as not a buildable lot line, so not a buildable lot. And if I understand correctly, this parcel is going to be converted to 75 Summer Street.
That's correct.
Separated and sold to 75 Summer
Yes,
Street.
that is correct. It's part of a field that the neighbor maintained for years. She just wants it back.
So on this, have you actually done both sides of it? I mean, the cleanest way to do it is to actually take it out of one lot and put it in the other lot, and rather than hang it out there, because
I have a draft deed explaining that it's going to go to 59 Summer Street. Would you like to see it?
see, the problem is this doesn't create your parcel A is either you're creating another lot for this. This is really what you need to do is recreate. You had two lots and you're going to end up with two lots, right?
No, I had one.
No. I mean, there's two lots there.
Correct.
There's Gene. Can you show the two lots? There's lot
So where
one.
that dotted line had been the solid line. The solid line's being moved in, replaced with the dotted line to create that parcel A.
Yeah, what you want to do is you want to create, the problem is you're going to have to do it, you're going to have to come back in again. Somebody's going to have to, if you leave it like this, you're going to have to come back in and put parcel A in lot 2B. Is that the intent of what you're doing here?
To leave it as a separate lot.
No, it's going to be part of, I can't even see it, 2A. Sorry,
Covered it, John, but you're right, the text, the way they're doing the lot lines by creating parcel A wasn't,
I did call the engineer, this is his intent, he wanted it shown this way.
Yeah, but-
I spoke with Chris.
it shows it as not a
Because the
buildable lot.
problem is, what you've got is, what's,
when we record it, my lawyer had that, that's a draft of the deed, it's kind of recorded as part.
what you have to do is, the problem is what this doesn't show is what the lots were before and what they are now. It's because the lot, like, go back to the lots. When you're done, Lot 1R is going to be one of the lots, and 2R is going to be one of the lots.
This plan is going to create a lot, that's the final plan.
I mean, if you're creating Lot 2R, Parcel A doesn't have any significance. If where the dotted line was where the end of the lot is, and Parcel A goes from Lot 1R to Lot 2R, now that I look at it, I think that's what you're doing. Is that what you're intending to do?
Yes.
Is to move Parcel A?
Yes. The square footage is in the bold, the new square footage.
So parcel A.
See, the problem with the way you did it is existing area, what's the old lot name for what is now 2R? Was it called something else before?
No, it was always 59.
Because, I mean, the problem ends up being is you're not, for us, I understand what you're trying to do, but the problem is if somebody comes back a couple years from now, it's not clear the way you've written it.
This is the Form A done in 2009, split off lot.
Oh, so Lot 2R is actually, yeah, okay.
Just done in '09, and since then, Chris has purchased that lot and built a home on it,
Okay.
so.
Okay, so Lot 2 is, can you make that a little bit bigger?
Bigger? Which way? Lot
Yeah,
2R?
make it a little bit, yeah, yeah.
The existing was 156, the proposed total area
Yeah, I
would be
mean,
175.
if you take the footnote and explain that parcel A is being conveyed from all Lot 1 to old Lot 2, you'll be okay. I mean, it does it, it's probably not the way I would have. In the end, I think, now that I see what you're doing, I think you're okay. Okay.
So the first note on there, John?
Okay, now if you look at the footnotes, I think then I think we should be okay.
We need to come up with some instructions for this, because it's always a problem with these A&Rs. But they have to show an old locus or something like that, show both.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit,
Yeah.
you know, with the footnote, it explains it exactly. The footnote explains completely what you're doing. I would, typically, the best way to do that is to show the old lines and then show the new lines.
I did call both the engineer and Chris and express that that's how you're used to seeing it. But
You
they-
show the old lines, then you show the new lines.
They felt confident that the
And
note-
you make the dotted lines the old lines, and you make the solid lines the
The
new
new line,
lines.
yep.
So if you do that, we can direct you to sign it without anything further.
Make the former lot line, the dotted
Former
line?
lot line, the dotted line, and the new lot line, the solid line.
That's what we did.
No, it's not. What you have to do is don't call it parcel A, call it the dotted line to be the former dimension of lot 1.
You want the dotted line around the whole lot, not just the
Yeah,
line that's
so
being moved.
what you need to show is that the old lot 1 included the,
Line is the former line, and the
yeah,
new line is the
dotted line is the
solid.
former line, yeah. If you do that, then you'll be okay. The dotted line is the former line, and the solid line is the final lines. If you do that, you'll be fine.
I'm still confused. Former lot line is the dotted line. The former,
Yeah, but it doesn't say that.
it says former lot line.
Where does it
Right
say?
in the middle.
Okay,
That's above plus
okay, okay.
You want to get rid of strike.
So, yeah, you should say a former lot line for lot 1, old lot 1.
Okay.
And then go back to the footnote, Gene. Well, Lot 1 is to be subdivided to form Lot 1R and Parcel A. No, isn't Parcel A going to be part of Lot 2? Okay, go back.
So they're referring to the plan I just gave you, the former plan, 16084, on that note.
Okay, go back to the, yeah, I think if you put, you're close, but you know, the problem is that it doesn't say everything on what you've got there. And I think what you need is under former lot line, so can you make it a little bit bigger? Okay,
What
yeah.
confused me was, you say parcel A is not a buildable lot, but parcel A isn't a lot.
Isn't a lot. See, you're right, that's the problem. It's, parcel A is combined with
Oh, it's part of,
the former lot 2 to create 2R. So you need to, you just need to change your, it's not a problem, you're pretty close, but you're just not quite there.
Former lot line, lot 1 line.
Yeah, it just, the problem is the footnote pretty much does it, but the problem is where you've writ, with the drawing, you're not 100% there.
Instead of parcel, should we say portion? Because we don't want to make an extra parcel, that's what the confusion
well,
is.
you're gonna be moving
Portion A
18,000.
to be conveyed,
Yeah,
to be
you're gonna-
Yeah,
combined
parcel,
to,
yeah.
with
Yeah.
lot 2,
So
become 2R.
just, we'll authorize Gene to sign it, but just, you're gonna have to clean it up a little bit,
Not a problem.
so.
Thank you.
yeah. So, Gene, we're okay with it, just
Yeah.
make some minor changes so it's clear.
Do you want to motion that, or?
Yeah, we can do that, we don't actually have to,
Authorize me to
but why don't we do that to, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve that the interim town planner execute the A&R, provided they make the adjustments to the locus in the plan.
Okay, good. Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay. Okay.
All right, for Boxwood Street, Phil Christensen will represent Messina Development, the applicant.
Good
I
evening.
know you're gonna get it right.
I don't know, I've had a lot of practice, but
I'm just going to show a locus first.
Sure.
Phil, so. Okay. Okay, so you may remember a couple weeks ago, Brian Vaughn was actually in with an A&R related to this lot. So this is the locus on Boxford Street. And here is the, oh, I'm sorry, that's the application. All right, so.
So
this is just creating 2 lots on Boxford Street, adequate frontage and area. The wetlands have been delineated and approved, and an ORAD issued by Conservation for the wetlands. So the contiguous buildable area is accurate. And
That's the locus right there, that was the original.
Stub piece in the front that says map whatever, is that a separate property entirely? Map 105?
map 105, yes, that's
Yes.
separate.
Yeah, yeah. So you're carving it off. So how big are lots 1 and 2?
87,000.
And they have the CBA?
Yep.
They have the frontage?
Hi, golly.
And the residual lot is what is the remaining lot, 3? Or,
No, it's the land, the remaining land in back, you can see, is 18 acres.
and you haven't boxed yourself in to create a wetland crossing or anything like that?
No, there is
by
not.
doing that?
Farther down the street, it goes through upland, and that's, a road will go in there to the land in the back.
Is there buildable land in back?
Yes, we'll be bringing in a subdivision for that shortly. PRD.
Does anybody have any questions on this? Somebody like to make a motion to direct the planner to approve the Form A for Boxford Street?
I move we direct the interim planner to approve the lot line, the creation of 2 new lots on Boxford Street, map 105C, lot 22.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. Okay, we have 1046 Great Pond Road.
Yes. So, as you know, this applicant has filed both a definitive subdivision plan and a watershed special permit. There's been ongoing discussions with the applicant and the downgradient abutter. We have prepared draft decisions for each. John Smolak is here to update you on the drainage.
So the public hearing is still open, so.
Public hearing
yeah,
is open on both of them.
Yeah. So, do you have anything more before he goes?
No, the outstanding issue was the drainage situation, and Lisa has reviewed it at this point. The plans were revised, to be honest, all the way up till this morning. She is satisfied with the review. I kept Jennifer Hughes in the loop throughout the whole revision process. They are not before conservation. It's not within jurisdiction. However, Jennifer did express interest in hearing Lisa's review, and she's been in the loop. She's okay with it.
Yeah, okay. Good, okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, other members of the board. For the record, John Smolak, attorney for the applicant. With me is Phil Christensen, project engineer. Just to add to what Gene had indicated, in terms of the definitive subdivision, there really isn't any change to the lot lines and configuration from what you've already heard about previously. And so the only change is really the stormwater management system with respect to the existing drainage along Great Pond Road. And as a result of the changes in the drainage, what we've had to do is file the Watershed Protection District Special Permit application because work is being undertaken in both the non-discharge and the non-disturbance zones to the wetlands. And the work under there does require a special permit because it's work related to stormwater management, so that's requires a special permit. And so what I wanted to do is have Phil sort of walk you through the stormwater management system and the design, and then we can take it from there. Phil?
Okay, if you remember, the neighbor to the south had a problem with drainage, draining from this property at 1046 onto his property. And part of that problem is caused by drainage from Great Pond Road that empties into 1046 and then drains southerly. So what we did, and working with Lisa and also with Jack Sullivan, the engineer for the abutter, what we've come up with is a design to divert the water totally away from the property to the south, Paulino's property. And what we show on the plan is a new line will be constructed from the catch basin in the street, right there. It'll go through that area that's hatched along the pipeline will be an area where we'll put in perforated pipe and stone underground to allow some of the water to infiltrate there. That was suggested by Lisa so that Jennifer would be happy that groundwater would still be flowing towards the wetland down below. The water would then, when there's too much water for the infiltration area to pick it up, the pipe continues down to that drain manhole 2, and then there's a catch basin top on that to pick up some drainage from the site, and then it drains down to the back of the property to a level spreader, which is approximately 450 feet from the lake. Okay, so we're proposing to put that drainage in, and additionally, if you go back up to the top by the street, you'll see that area, the large crosshatch area there. All of the drainage that comes from the driveway in that little area of upland there will drain into a infiltration basin that we're going to create at that spot. Again, to allow that water to go in the ground rather than through pipes. Gets into the groundwater, and then flows south. But it eliminates the direct discharge, surface discharge of water to the neighbor's property. So, and additionally, what we'll do is provide a drainage easement for the city or for the town to go from the catch basin in the street to drain manhole 1. And that's been requested by DPW.
But can you speak to the wetlands viability that?
Or whether it will maintain, yeah. The wetlands to the south, there's a fairly good-sized drainage basin for that. What we're diverting only amounts to, at most, 5% of the surface water that goes towards it. And additionally, by recharging the water here, particularly on the smaller storms in both of those recharge areas, you'll keep the groundwater flowing towards the wetland, and we won't deprive the wetland of water. So it's kind of a balancing act between the surface water problems and not letting the wetland dry up. So Lisa was very helpful. We went back and forth quite a bit over the last 2 weeks, actually, to come up with a design that would satisfy everybody's interests.
Is there much maintenance on that?
Not a lot. I think in the, we did put a, yeah, I didn't mention it. In drain manhole 1, there'll be a snout-type oil grease trap, as well as a deep sump. So the only maintenance, real maintenance, will be on that. Obviously, the infiltration from the perforated pipe, nothing we can do about maintaining that. That's buried.
Right.
And the infiltration ponding area there will just be maintained with normal yard maintenance. It's just.
And which property will be responsible for the deep sump, and
That's the homeowner.
which property? Is that clear somewhere in an O&M plan? Is it going to be because we're dividing the property?
Right.
It'll be in an association document.
Oh, there's going to be an HOA on the property?
Yeah.
Okay. And we have an O&M plan, Gene?
Yeah, let's make sure that when we go through the decision, we address that. That's a good catch.
Now, just so you know, this was a special permit for the drainage. This drainage is not on the definitive plan. When we did the definitive plan, we just have existing conditions there. We didn't show the revised drainage.
But I included those plans on the definitive
Yes.
decision as well. I referenced them both, so I tied them together.
John?
Any other questions on Michael?
I'm good.
Just a quick question. Does this redirection change the amount of water that eventually finds its way into the lake?
No, it does not change the amount of water that goes to the lake.
Okay.
And it provides more treatment than
And
is there
it,
today.
yes, it does clean it up a
yeah.
little bit more than
Yeah.
it is at present, right?
Can you, because we're going to close in a few seconds, it would probably be helpful, because this is extended on a period of time, to just go back and put the plan that shows basically what we're approving, because it's a little bit, unusual. It's not your typical subdivision plan, just so we can
Yes.
get grounded, because I think we're creating a roadway that's never going to be built, so,
Right.
so it would just be helpful to refresh our memory as we're going through the decisions, so.
If you remember, at present, there's 4 houses on the property. And what the owner intends to do is to demolish or remove one of the houses entirely from the property. And then what you see there, that L-shaped house with the large turnaround in front of it, will be moved from that location to the lot created in the top of the property. So it'll be a total of 3 lots. And there'll be three houses, as you see in the lotting plan there. And the proposed roadway that you see is Lot 39. By the way, it's a land court plan, that's why those numbers are where they are. That really encompasses a good deal of the driveway for that first house. But you're correct, we're not intending to build a roadway here.
And the only driveway construction is for the new house.
Yes, there will
Built
be
on
a
lot
driveway off Great
36.
Pond Road for the new house, and some of the driveway on site will be removed that's no longer needed for where that house is being moved from.
So in the end, what you're doing is you're taking, there were 4 houses, you reduce it to 3, and you're moving one of the 3 houses?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So, because we have to make sure that when we do our waivers, we do the waiver against the construction of the roadway, because we don't want the roadway constructed. So it was just helpful for me to refresh my memory of what the basic design was, so.
So that's the proposed there. That's what
Yeah. Okay. Okay, does anybody else have any questions before we close? So are there any questions, comments from the audience before we close the public hearing?
Good evening. My name's Carl Goodman. I'm an attorney. I represent Mr. and Mrs. Polino, the abutters to the south. And we've worked very closely with the project developer, his attorney, and engineers, as well as our engineer. And we are, at this point, satisfied with this proposal that it meets, the reasonable objectives of the developer as well as our concerns. Our only remaining issue now, and we've worked also with the proposed decision, and we're satisfied with the terms as it's been submitted to you, is in the subdivision plan, sheet 4, which shows proposed conditions, was not updated to reflect the revised drainage shown on the drainage plans for the special permit. And so we would just ask that before the subdivision plan is endorsed, that a revised sheet 4 reflecting the actual drainage as shown on the drainage plans be substituted.
Fair enough. Is that already in the decision? Or
I guess I provided John with a draft decision, so there must be an error.
No, I mean, we can hand mark that in as an additional condition.
It's not referenced at all. Oh, so you're saying those plans aren't referenced as one of the conditions?
All the plans are referenced, but it's just, there's the drainage on one of those sheets on the definitive. Doesn't reflect the updated stormwater.
Okay.
Sheet 4 just needs to be substituted to be consistent with the drainage plans from the special permit. Thank you.
would somebody like to make a motion to close the public hearing? Or actually, both of them, both the definitive subdivision and the watershed special permit for 1046 Great Pond Road.
I move we close the meetings for the watershed special permit and the notice.
Let's vote that first.
Oh,
So you
you're
want to
right.
close for the watershed special permit? Do
On
I hear a
146.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and now for the subdivision.
I move we close the meeting on the, for the subdivision at 1046 Great Pond Road.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good, let's go through the subdivision first, because that's the more material one.
In some places it has his initial, and some places it doesn't. Just, okay.
findings of fact, number 11. In fact, I like the fact you got so many of them. It's good. It's always good to have them, even in the case of a subdivision. But the proposed roadway is classified as a private way, and we're actually waiving the construction of it as well. So.
Can we make them put on the cul-de-sac, though, with the little plantings in the middle? Imaginary, in the imaginary?
They can have as many imaginary plantings as they want.
Are we waiving the construction of it, or
Yeah.
prohibiting the construction of it? They're two
What did you
different
ask, waiving
things.
or what?
Well, one is saying,
Well, anytime we've done it in the past, we've actually done it that way. I mean, we just waive it, yeah, because there would be no incentive for them to construct it, because it would deteriorate the value
well, what if they
hugely.
decide they want to build it? Would you?
Yeah, they'd have to come back.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, they'd have to come back, yeah. But we'll make sure, it's still a good point, we'll make sure the language is that we're waiving the construction and they shall not construct it. Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
Did Jane get that?
Yeah.
I'm looking at page 3, item 2, under permit definitions. Is this where we reference the sheet 4 thing we were talking about before?
So the
Yep,
revised should
so
say-
the proposed drainage modification is the watershed plans, so sheets 1 through 4,
But it should be revised as of today. Wasn't there a revision, or no?
revised to March 14th.
On March 14th.
Yeah, that's the plan dates.
That's the plan? Okay. So that's in there now?
March 14th is the plan date, and the definitive subdivisions are the 5-page plans referenced in that same, the first set, and the watershed is the second set.
When you've listed, like, under special conditions, if you look at in item 1, I just want to read it. You may have it someplace, I just don't know. It says, "The driveway, yada, 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 will be constructed according to the plans with requested waivers granted. With respect to waivers concerning development standards, the planning board makes a finding in accordance with section 2.74 that the waive requirements will not impair the functioning. The requested waivers consist of, okay. Yeah, I think you need to say more explicitly that the proposed we're waiving the construction of the roadway, and it will not be constructed. I think you need to say it explicitly.
Except for the driveway shown on the plan. I mean, within that roadway, there is a driveway, so.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, fair enough, yeah.
Under B, performance guarantee for lot release, it says for all 4 lots. That was only going to be 3. 3. So is that okay.
Well, the roadway is actually a lot on this plan.
Oh, okay. So you have is that how you have it labeled?
Yeah,
Okay, okay. So then that is.
Yeah, you might want to put a footnote including
it's
the
the
roadway,
roadway
just
lot.
so it's clear, that's, yeah.
So under 1D, the last, end of the last sentence, no new constructed ways are proposed, but they are putting in one new driveway, right? Am I misreading that?
Yeah, but the driveway is separate from a roadway.
Okay.
They'd be
Yep.
allowed that is right, I think, so it would be okay, yeah.
John, if I could just mention one thing in terms of, to address the comment on the amendment to the plan. I was proposing that under, I guess on page 4, and it says prior to endorsement of the plan, maybe include a sort of a 11A, which says basically sheet 4 of the subdivision plans shall be updated to incorporate the stormwater improvements shown on the proposed drainage modification plan. If that works.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. it's going to be moved? Okay, so it's not a,
That's the original portion, and it was expanded, it was doubled in size.
okay, so it's not like an 19th century kind of thing? No, okay.
Okay, back to the 4 lots. Who's getting the 4th lot?
Yeah, that's what I was just going to
Beat you to it.
Who's getting lot
Who's getting the
39?
roadway? Because it's an actual lot now by, I understand when you have land court, but
Well,
now who gets it?
It may be conveyed to one of the adjacent lot owners, and then it'll be subject to a homeowners association in terms of maintenance.
But we got to make sure that it does get conveyed, we don't get stuck with it not being released somehow.
Well, it'll be included in the homeowners association that'll be reviewed by town council anyway. So-
Okay.
So, no, good point.
Yeah, good catch. Do you want to, I missed that one entirely. Do you want to amend anything or make?
No, we're good.
Yeah, okay. On prior to the endorsement of the plan, number 5, I think, again, nor accepted as a public way, we ought to say it's not going to be constructed again, so.
Number 8, is that obligation to maintain the stormwater, is that something that goes into the deed?
Well, to the extent that there's easements or deed restrictions, it has to go, it'll go into the, because, right, typically when you do a stormwater management facility, it's going to be maintained. You have to give the town easements to go to that, and there will be all those easements, right?
Right, as part of the association.
Yeah, yeah. And they'll be on the plans, right? But any easements that exist will be on the plans.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Number 14 references that any easement needs to be recorded.
yeah.
We say we're approving a 3-lot definitive subdivision, but aren't we actually approving a 4-lot definitive subdivision with this 39 thing?
This technically,
Well, it's a 3-lot subdivision, it's a 3 buildable lots. I mean, if you want to clarify, and then associated roadway, lot 39, if you want to put that in to clarify it, that would be fair, yeah.
Somebody's got to pay the taxes.
Something like that, but I don't think there'll be very much, so, yeah.
Frontage on Great Pond.
Can I ask a question? John, can I ask a question? So they're going to have a homeowners association, and I don't see that as a requirement that it's going, I see that it's mentioned that there's going to be one, but it doesn't say that it's going to be the responsibility to maintain that. We don't need that?
Well, John, how's the, in terms of maintenance, what would be done privately and what would be done publicly?
Well, I think in terms of the association, it'll just be a common scheme declaration with easements, restrictions, and covenants that'll include all obligations within one single document that'll be reviewed by town council, including those maintenance obligations. So,
But what would be, in terms of maintenance obligations, how would you divide what would be a town responsibility from what would be a homeowner's responsibility?
well, this would all be homeowner responsibility, and the town has the right but not the obligation to undertake some maintenance with respect to the easement that would be granted to it. So,
Okay.
so basically,
And will we get to see the homeowners association thing, or is that done?
well, there's no problem with it. I have no problem. I think it is in there that it's required to be reviewed by town council.
Okay,
So,
because that, gets at your issue to deal with the maintenance.
Well, I'm just curious because, I mean, unless you lay it out in here, remember we had that issue, like we've had it in the past, that we have to go back to years and years, what was the decision and what was going to be
Right,
the homeowners association responsibility. Unless we lay it out in a decision, how do we tell them that's their responsibility? That's the only thing I'm unclear about. I see that you're going to have
Yeah.
one, but I don't see where it's delineated what they're going to do.
Is there an O&M plan submitted with Lisa for the water shed portion, the stormwater? Okay.
No, she didn't require one. But the association structure that'll be created will be very similar to, well, John, Kelsey Lane, which was off of Summer Street. You had put that together, the subdivision for Bill Gillen, off of Summer Street, which had a similar structure where it was a roadway that was created, but with driveways running through it. And so we put together an association for that. That was reviewed and approved by town council, so it'd be substantially.
As a condition that to specify the homeowners and that it gets reviewed by our town council and shown to us.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
what
here
do
to
you think?
I think there should be an O&M plan. I don't think, Lisa usually reviews one, so I think there should be a quick, I mean, it's probably going to be 2 paragraphs. It's not a big system,
That's
but,
probably.
and that's typically, yeah. And then we can reference it.
Yeah, I
in
know we
O&M
have one
plan.
that delineates the responsibilities for maintenance activities, yeah.
Or that could be attached to the homeowners association.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And make it clear that the town does not want to maintain this.
Right, well, we know.
They want access to it in case
It doesn't get done, yeah.
They don't want to be near it.
I think we can add in on that under special conditions, number 3.
Page 4.
It was, we have the maintenance agreements required, and, operating and maintenance plan.
Under prior to issuance of the building permit, number 20 says the catch basins should be adequately protected and maintained. And you can reference in accordance with the O&M plan and
Yeah,
that
that'd
one.
be good.
Thank you.
That's covering them up so they don't get sand and silt during construction, existing catch basins, that means.
We still need to reference, I mean, that'll still be part of the
Put them
O&M
in
plan.
both.
But that's not the same thing.
My lawyer says that. Okay.
Okay, is everybody through?
One concern. On condition 38, prior to release of security, again, this was disclosed to me by John in discussions with the abutters attorney. 38, we do not typically require for release of security to notify abutters. The abutting property has recommended we include that.
Well, I agree, we don't want to make it a practice, but let us do that in practice, but just not put it in the decision.
How many butters are there on the butters list?
I don't think the butters were significant.
I think there's one abutter who obviously has an interest, but we
Right.
can tell them, there's no harm in telling them. I don't want to make that our normal practice.
We have a mechanism where if you put your name at the clerk's office, all agendas are emailed to you automatically when they get posted. I don't know if that would suffice, that we send agendas, which this would always be on an agenda. If- Yeah, I don't know if that alternative would suffice or not. The notice? Okay. So I'll work with them to add their name to the clerk's office to get the agenda. I question our execution to that come that day, that's all.
Go ahead, Pete.
35, at the end of 35, unless the planning board agrees to extend the time frame to raise or relocate the 4th dwelling that's being removed. I mean, is that standard language that?
Well, I think you want to do that because, who knows what's going to happen in the real world, I think.
Because the approval of the plan is based, at least in part, on, stating that one of the properties is going to be removed.
Well, Yeah, but I mean, it's a little bit is if somebody hypothetically came along tomorrow and bought the whole property, then we'd throw this whole plan out. I mean, and wanted to live with it the way it was. So you got to have some flexibility, but I'll.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention these conditions 34 and 35 were requested by the upgrading abutter. So this is the language that they had agreed to, and we had agreed. I'm sorry, there's
By whom?
an abutter that's upgrading to the property that had requested through their attorney for these two conditions to be included, because they wanted to make sure that the house, once there's a decision on the house with respect to Lot 36, that it either be moved, or that it be moved, and also if to remove the other house and to make sure that's either moved or raised, the fourth house. So they wanted to make sure that it's done within a time frame, a specific time frame.
We have no conditions as to what raised means.
Yeah, we have no conditions as to the time frame.
Yeah. Well, I mean.
Well, I mean, let's see, as a condition, this says exit to be raised on sheet 2 of the place, to another, okay. Well, the thing about it is that what happens is that if you don't raise the thing, you've created a zoning violation, so, I mean, that's ultimately, in the current environment, arguably there's a zoning violation there now, but that's a different can of worms. There are the existing houses on the site, but if you create 3 separate lots, you're going to put one house on each lot. So once you do that, you
And I'm sure the other
effectively-
homeowner's not going to allow an empty basement to
Yeah.
exist there.
As of yesterday, it does create a zoning violation because the SJC just came out with a new decision.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with respect to any houses that are constructed prior to the enactment of the subdivision control law, there's the ability to create lines, divide lots. But in that circumstance, what the court determined is that, yes, you can divide the lots, that complies with the subdivision control law, but it doesn't comply with zoning. So they made a distinction as of yesterday. So we're glad we didn't go that route.
Yeah. Okay, are we all through?
Yeah, I just have one more question, because all my communication has been with John Smolak. In condition 8, under the endorsement of the plan, this is just to be completely transparent, the abutter had recommended that not only would this be enforceable by the town of North Andover, but also by the immediate abutters, which I struck that immediate abutters, and
There has to be.
Okay, again, I just want to be transparent. I removed that. I did not think that was.
Okay. I mean, I think what's interesting about this is, at one level, this is a very simple sort of thing. From an engineering perspective, it is obviously about as simple as you would get, but from what I think the conceptual thing of how you create something and make it work under the zoning, it's actually fairly complicated, and that's part of the reason why we have so many different things. So I think all in all, this thing is fine, and I think you've done a nice job on it. It's just a lot of twists and turns along the way, so. With that in mind, would somebody like to make a motion to approve this decision as amended?
I'll make a motion to approve the definitive subdivision plan for 1046 Great Pond Road as amended.
Second.
Okay, hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. On to the watershed special permit.
So move to close the hearing on.
I think we already did.
Did we move to close? Yes,
Yeah,
we did, sorry.
Yeah, we did,
Okay.
so now let's just look at it.
Was this application really filed on February 5th, 2014? We've been hearing it for a year.
Watershed? Oh, it should be 15 if that says
Okay.
14.
I know it's been going on for a long time, but. Okay, so that's in the first paragraph on page 2, third to last sentence.
Yeah, and same thing on on page 2. It's again listed up
That's
at
the
the
one I
top.
just picked up. Is there another?
And it's on the first page, on the boilerplate
yeah.
page, yeah,
Twice, yeah.
yeah.
We just like to have something to say, Jean, that's all. We like to have something to say.
On that first paragraph, can we get the font size, all the same fonts? I think we have 3 different font sizes in that. Just,
First paragraph?
We do.
yeah,
It was on the last one as well. We had different font sizes throughout the
get them all
whole
to 12 point if you don't mind. People with
This is my
reading
first day
impairments,
in
yeah.
class. Okay.
We're really picky tonight.
Meticulous attention.
I would have gone a little further, that sometimes it's A with a paren, sometimes it isn't, so.
On the findings of fact, I would add one that effectively basically says that, there's a nominal amount of new construction, there's some elimination of pervious surface, so the amount of additional pervious surface is nominal, there's no new roadway construction involved. I mean, it's, it really is a de minimis impact, practically speaking, and that, the net of all the drainage structures is going to improve the drainage and into the lake as well. So I think we ought to get it, fundamentally, that's the benefit of this.
See, we got this now, right? You seen that before?
Page 4, paragraph 2. The subdivision, the last sentence, it was approved tonight, right? It's dated, it might be dated that?
I have these ready
Yeah.
before. Yep. Number 3, too.
Whatever happened to that area in the back of the property that had been seeded, I think, with grass? Was that ever addressed at any?
I think
What's
the
in the
meeting is-
previous decision?
But it's addressed in
It
the
was,
special permit.
I missed that one, sorry.
Just look at see the big spot on the
Yeah.
drawing there, yeah.
Gene, on page 3, we get through the findings of fact, and then you, at the beginning of page 3, you jump to special conditions, and item 1 is a special condition, but 2, 3, 4, and 5 really are more special, finding the fact under number 5. It feels like they're put into and it almost feels like we meshed 2 separate things. So you see where I'm going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're more finding of fact.
Yeah, and then like it's almost like that item number 1 should be put in down with the special conditions, and the other things should be moved up into the finding of fact, more under 5, because I think they're special, general 10.31 findings of fact. But, again, you may have to figure out which goes under the first finding of fact, and then which one falls under the second one. So if you could just separate the 2, that would be great, yeah.
So in number 1, under special condition, the fertilizers. So I'm just asking a question of consistency here. Here, we're using the word shall be slow release, which I like. And I know we've already voted on the other one, but there we used should be slow release.
That's good. Make both the shall, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, yeah.
We always put less than 5%. This is the first time I've seen that. I'm just curious.
I want to say it was the North Andover Country Club decision that required that, because it was, again, a very
Okay.
sensitive area near a wetland, and that was stipulated.
reference the homeowners association in this opinion, or that just stays in the subdivision?
I think you just need to have it in the subdivision.
Subdivision?
Really, I think this is really, if we hadn't done all that drainage work, we wouldn't have even had to do this, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's okay.
Page 4, number 4. To be consistent on this one, you should be on the slow release, so it shall be on the last sentence for the fertilizer.
I guess you can mention that on page 5 as well, under I, 7I. Should be 7A.
We should add in, I don't think I see it here, the construction monitor agreement on this one. I know we have under a notation about the independent monitor, but
Just dig safe prior to solution. I don't think you see the hours. Do you have to mention that?
is it in there? Okay,
Construction.
no, that's fine, as long as it's in there.
Do we need to do that?
What's it say that?
It's the hours of you can, like when you're constructing something, you usually allow certain hours of operation. We don't have to do that, do we?
I think it's going to be de minimis enough that, in this case, I don't think we need to do it, so. Okay, everybody,
vote.
okay? Somebody like to, Lynn?
Motion to approve the watershed special permit for 1046 Great Pond Road as amended.
Okay. Do I hear a second? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Good. Good. All right, that was exciting. Clear the decks at one. We're getting tired of seeing all these folks here every week. So, we got a discussion, a Wheelabrator, that's a blast from the past. What's going on here?
So, Scott Emerson is here. In 2004, which I included in your packet, but Scott's actually brought copies as well. There's a condition, the testing in 2004 had been revised a little bit based on testing limits. So at the time, they were performing at less than 7, if I remember right, DSCMs. And so a minor modification was done to allow that to be reduced slightly, as long as they met a certain hurdle, and they had.
wish Rowan was here.
Yeah.
This is Rowan was the chairman when we originally heard this many, many years ago, and this was one of those meetings where we had like 75 people in the room, and they were all crazed about the thing, and this is one of the things we came out of it with, is that we said, well, let's do testing, because what people are concerned about with this thing is whether the thing spits off, nasty pollutants that we don't want to have. And the best way to make sure that that doesn't happen is to test, in which case, I think it's worked very well. I think there's a computer, if I'm correct, at Town Hall that actually measures the stuff and so forth. And
It's at the plant, and then we put it out on the website, and
Yeah.
then people can look at it, right?
So,
So the minor modification done in '04 reserved the right for the planning board to revisit this and possibly reduce it at this point. So Scott's here to show results, recent results.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Scott Emerson, I'm the plant manager at Wheeler North Andover, and I'm here for a couple of things, actually, and both of them have to do with the site plan review decision from August 1998, and then the minor modification to that. But the one we're talking about right now is, if we go to the paper I handed out to you, there's 5 pages here. The first 2 are the notice of decision for the minor modification, which was approved by this board back in 2004. The next page is actually from the original decision. It's the section that was modified, so the original language is there. And the last 2, there are some, just a graph. One of them is a copy of this graph right here, showing the results of the testing that we've been doing. And then the last one is, it's actually the impacts of the air. We do air modeling after the fact. We take that test data, and the state requires us to model what happens to those emissions, and we model them through the EPA standards. Is they take this data, some meteorological information, and some mathematical formulas, and determine what the impact is to the community. And that third graph shows that. So where we are at this point in the minor modification, on the second page, it says, if any time in the future the dioxin furan emissions test exceeds 7 nanograms per dry standard cubic meter, the applicant must begin submitting these dioxin furan test results every quarter, which is where we are now. It says, however, the applicant may repetition the planning board, and the planning board reserves the right to amend this condition and allow less frequent testing if the test results reveal levels of dioxin that are at or below 7 nanograms per dry standard cubic meter. Now, what this chart here shows is there's 38 tests in the last 4 almost 5 years that are actually below 5, the trigger being 7. What we're asking is that we, at this point, we have 15 years of testing like this, that we default from, the town wanted, as Mr. Simon stated, to do testing. Well, we're already required to do testing by the Mass DEP. And what they require is every 9 months. It's kind of a rolling thing, and the reason it's 9 months is that it catches a different season every time, so you're not testing always in the summer, always in winter. Every 9 months, we test alternate units, and with the limit being, and the results being 30 nanograms per DCSM. And if at any time it goes above 7, it triggers that we test both units every 9 months. And if we do that for 3 consecutive tests below 7 or 27 months, the results are below 7, we go back to testing 1 unit every 9 months. And now, like I say, we have close to 15 years worth of testing, and the results have been pretty consistent, up in the ranges. One popped over a 10 at that point, but you can see the bulk of them down in this range. And we're just asking to exercise you reserve the right to amend this condition, and we're just allowing to see if we can go to the Mass DEP required testing, which is what kind of drove in the first place.
I confess to being a little bit confused. Is the Mass thing every 9 months?
Every 9 months, yeah.
Okay, so isn't that what we said in the decision?
Yep, it's on the first page of the, in the actual...
Time exceed quarterly. However, if the test results stay or less than 7, the applicant may then, after 1 year of continuous results, conduct tests and submit the results every 9 months, according to
Mass DEP requirements, right?
So aren't you don't you have the right to do that now? What are you
Well,
asking for?
well, that's what we're
from us?
asking for. We read this, that we went over 7 at one time, so,
So there's one reading over 7.
went over, well, in the past, in 2000 and, I think it was 10, there was 1 or 5, or whatever it was one over 7 that triggered then to go back to quarterly, which we've done for 4 or 5 years, whatever, and I don't know that it's automatic that we go there. If you read the second paragraph, the paragraph's a little confusing. That's why we actually came to the planners and asked that question.
I
We had
mean,
a discussion on this.
it seems to me under 6, where it says, that after 1 year of continuous results in this category, which would be within the limit, that you would only have to do it every 9 months.
Then the second page says if you went over it,
Cover the second one.
yeah, you
What they're looking
you
for
go to
clarity.
quarterly, which is what we did. Went to quarterly after going over.
Oh, yeah, I see what you
So-
mean. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but you've been under for,
Almost 5 years straight there, so.
yeah.
And so it
I don't
beats
know,
the-
what do you think?
I just,
Pete, what? Pete?
What causes the samples 2/3 of the way along to go down, no, keep right there. What caused it to consistently bottom out? I mean, that's an interesting change in your data.
Yeah, well, what we do when we operate the boilers, we're always learning things. We change, there's
Yeah.
bag changes in there, the equipment's modified, not modified. It's a fabric filter system, bunch of vacuum cleaner bags. We change the bags out. They drop down into here. We do dry cleaning now. We don't add water to the units.
Yeah.
Things like that.
You're gonna keep doing that?
That's our goal.
It looks great.
Oh, been running, yeah, the plant's running really, knock on wood, running really well. So.
That was my question.
What caused the 10?
Yeah.
Again, I'm not the air quality manager, I have the air quality manager in the back here, but we're measuring nanograms per dry standard cubic meter, and I don't know how many zeros are on a nanogram? 10?
Yeah, we're literally counting molecules for these samples, so occasionally you'll get a number like 10, and if we knew why.
If we had,
and
yeah,
you
equipment
test again,
failed,
it
it'd
comes
be a
right
lot
down.
worse.
It looks like it was obviously an anomaly. I suppose if you went back earlier in time, it was under the 7 prior to
It was a
that.
7, and it was like back in 2005, there was an 8. You know, every now and then it pops over that 7 mark, but now, but the Mass
I mean, to Pete's point is, it looks like you've actually done something to dramatically reduce it, that it must be your practices, just what you've learned.
That's what we hoping.
Where are the measurements taken, out of curiosity?
They're in the stack, they're in stack measurements. The
Okay.
sampling crew comes in, they put a probe in the stack and they draw samples out and test it that way.
And you do it I mean, your primary regulator is the state, right, on this? I mean, you conform to, they must look at the way you do it.
Right, and every 9 months, we do it for them also, as well as the town, and we have to send them the results, and that's where that's where it triggers, the real permit is from the state.
Yeah.
And we just act, and what we have here is a local condition. And the reason the condition was there is we didn't have any data, because we hadn't done any testing yet, back in 1998, we didn't have the equipment yet. So the town was concerned, well, let's do more testing to make it more safe.
Yeah.
We didn't have any
Okay.
data, so now we got a lot, of data, and the idea was to do it for a year, and we actually did it for 4 years before we came to the first time. So we'd get a bunch of data before we'd make a decision. Now we have, 40 tests or 39 tests in a row, something like that, so.
This decision goes back to 1998.
Yep.
Are the standards still 7
Yep,
nanograms?
The standards, the
For the
limit is
state?
30, right.
No, but
7 is still the trigger, right. If you're above 7, you test both units. If you drop like down in this range, they would allow us to test.
they haven't, none of the EPA requirements have required them to be
No,
better?
the state is actually stricter than the EPA.
Okay, and the state
And then the
hasn't-
town's stricter than the
The
state.
state
No.
hasn't made them even stricter in
No.
the last 18 years?
No.
Okay.
No.
The problem with the decision is that they have to come back and re-petition. It's not like it's automatic, so they have to ask.
We have, yeah, so what
Right,
we're
so they're
asking,
going to have to come back. The
Well, they are
discussion's
asking.
not,
Yeah. I mean, I
well, no,
don't think we
this is a
need to-
discussion.
I think what we're asking is that it says reserve the right to amend this condition. We're asking to amend it to default to the state
So
requirements.
that's the question.
They don't go away.
Repetition.
Require minor modifications again, or can you do an insubstantial change to this based on the clause that says you reserve the right to make a change to amend this?
I mean, if you think about it, we did make a change in 2004. The change, I read the paragraph that's on the second page. Okay, if you go over 7, this is what you have to do, that happened. Then they will petition the planning board, and the planning board reserves the right to amend this and allow for less frequent testing. if the results reveal. Yeah, so that's effectively what you're doing. Now, the question becomes, do we have to do this formally, or do we do this informally?
We met with the health department and Erica Forey, and I think four.
Yeah, I mean,
four-
what I would prefer to do is I have no problem with what you're trying to do. I think you've done a good job. What I would prefer to do is to do this formally, because that way it creates the full amount of transparency. If anybody in town complains about it, or any of the other boards want to see it, they know exactly what we're doing. We'll be in and out in one night, you know. I don't think this is very complicated.
Do you want us to propose that language, or just to default to the Mass DEP requirements? You actually have it in there. You have it in there in the beginning, so.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you work together to craft
Okay.
language? I mean, I don't know, what do people think? I mean, do you want to defer to the Mass DPW?
DEP, yeah.
I mean, DP, I think it's a little bit, we do want to reserve the right if you exceed the thing to go back to it, but I think what we're doing is we're acknowledging that you've been compliant for a long period of time, so.
And if,
How
yeah,
about this notice of decision? Do you really want to write up a new one for next time? Is that what you're saying? Or just, I mean, I just think we need a formal hearing, because it just says repetition. I don't know if we need a new notice.
Well, I want it to be, I mean, whether we actually change a decision or we just sort of make a determination, this is one of those ambiguous things. I would like to do it so that anybody that would conceivably have an interest would know about it, you know? And I think we could do it, I don't think we'd actually have to amend the decision, we would just have to make a determination.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
plus
Yeah.
they should have wording based on some of the practices and filtration that you use today is much different than you used 10, 15 years ago.
Oh, no, it's pretty much the same.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's this equipment was put in 2000. We started testing
Well,
then,
that's
so it's
what
been
I
over
want to
15
do.
years.
We're not being bureaucratic or putting ways in it. It's going to be a simple sort of thing. We'll come in, we're doing it in public one night, it'll be announced in advance. Somebody may say something or not, but I think it's going to be, I don't think you heard anything that people disagree with.
And you've got great data, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll just do it, and then that way you can continue to be the upstanding corporate citizens that you are today,
Can I ask
so.
one question? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
The every 9 months, when you go there, if you go every 9 months, it's still going to be displayed in the library or wherever that you're doing it? Okay.
And
Yeah.
can I just ask, you said sample in the stack, who does the testing?
We hired out to a contractor. Currently, DECO is the name of the contractor. They do that. That's what.
So it's an independent third
Independent
party?
contractor, right.
Yeah.
They just
So
stay right around the
there's
country
not
doing
conflict of
testing.
interest there, I guess. That's what it sounds like. It's not you're doing it for yourself, it's somebody else doing it. And the state reviews it, right?
The state reviews every 9 months. The state reviews those results. The quarterly ones, the town was reviewing. Up
Yeah.
until 3 years ago,
Okay.
they stopped reviewing them.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of got us talking about. No one's looking at the results.
You need a
Yeah.
person to review it.
There's just one other clause in terms of the reporting.
Yep.
So the original decision required, is it 2 full copies, hard copy?
No, well, actually, the decision
I think it's
said-
3.
Yeah, no, it's in 2C on that, it's on the third page, the bottom. We had a discussion about that also. I interpreted it, we have for 15 years. It says, commencing at the time decision is filed in the town clerk's office at the same time that MRI, that's the company used to be called, submits such reports to regulatory agency. MRI shall deliver to the town manager 2 copies of each periodic, example, monthly, quarterly, 9-month annual report required by the federal, state, or local permits and/or regulations relating to air quality. So what we've been doing for 15 years is 2 copies of every test in the test data. I mean, we got volumes like this. And every time we do one, 2 copies to the town manager. And they got stacks of them, and they don't know what to do with them. Because they're not the ones that really probably should have it, but that's what the decision says. So we also make copies and give them to the Board of Health, and then we make copies and give them to the town's consultant. That's the person that's actually going to review them. And and we met the other day and talked about it, and we're trying to go get away from the papers kind of stuff. We do a lot of electronic filing and things like that. And we're reading this, and we're asking, could we, it doesn't say here, it just says 2 copies.
Yeah, I mean, you see it here.
Yeah, actually, that's really
You know,
nice.
when I first joined this board, I used to get a stack this high.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine if it's electronic.
Yeah, because it doesn't specify, but I think Gene said it really doesn't say that it has to be paper.
That it would go on the town website, right?
It is anyway, right?
It's on the website.
Yeah.
So just add that in.
You could, except.
That's in
that you
another-
want,
that's a decision- that's another-
200 pages of detail on the website.
That's another decision that requires it to be on the website, so.
More electronically than it is.
We
Yeah.
we do it, what, in discs?
Do
Yeah,
they
I
do
mean,
want
once
it-
you get it electronic, you can put it anywhere you want.
I think you do actually want to require it in electronic format in this day and age,
Yeah.
because 200 pages trying to find a word in there is painstaking to
If you
look
have to
through.
file it for the next 15 years, you'll need another room.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, when last town manager left, he asked me, what do you want to do with all these books?
Yeah, so, yeah, we'll definitely go electronic.
Newbury Port has a bonfire every year, you know, they collect them.
Don't you end
up burning that stuff?
They bring it back, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, electronic is definitely, we'll figure out.
Yeah, it doesn't say one way, so we just wanted to get
Yeah, that's
clarification
fine.
that the electronic
That's
is fine.
fine.
Okay.
And I think it's not that is an insubstantial change to
Yeah.
this decision, right? And-
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I don't even think, like, if that were the only thing, I don't even think we'd need a hearing for that.
No,
I mean,
yeah,
No, it's not here.
I can do that one insubstantial.
That was more
and
interpretation.
We'll file for a modification site plan
yeah,
for the other piece.
yeah, okay, great. Excellent.
No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, Lynn, how were the minutes?
Oh, and one change in the header, it put 7 PM at 7 M on the minutes.
Ooh, good catch.
In the minutes on the header, where it's, the meeting was called to order at 7 M.
You need to get a letter.
Yeah, 12 hours, yeah, exactly. All right, so would somebody like to make a motion? Lynn, you'll make the motion to approve the minutes with
Yes.
as amended?
Correct.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Move we adjourn.
motion to adjourn? Okay, Pete, yeah? Sure.
And I'm not sure if this is the right place to ask this kind of question, but I guess I just
Go right
will.
ahead.
So, watershed protection is essentially to protect the lake, right?
Yeah,
And this body is the SPGA.
yes,
Right. So my question is, I mean, that's been in place since what, the mid-'80s?
yeah. It's may have even been prior to that, I
Okay.
think, yeah.
So, but my question is this, how do we know if this is working? And I have a thought, but I don't, because I'm new, I don't know what the SPGA has done over the
Well,
decades.
the thing, if you go back to the very beginning, when the original sort of master watershed zoning bylaw was done, the town had a consultant in, and they actually measured all that sort of stuff. It's never been done since then.
But where I'm kind of going with this is there any record, I know on the website there's a record of testing the treated water, which of course is important. But with respect to the watershed, the key metric is the raw water.
Right.
What's happened to and so is there any opportunity at any point for this board to ask, say, the water department, come in and show us your tests for the last 10, 20 years. What's the condition, not of the treated water, but of the lake water? Or not like a spot check. The point here is the trend over time.
Right, no, I see where you're going with that. That's actually I hadn't really thought, that's very interesting.
Here's the dots in the graph, that's what we want to see.
Yeah, it may be
How's it
harder, the interesting thing is, as I said, it was done at one time, but it was actually done in a very sophisticated way, because they went all around all sides of the lake, and they measured things. Now, I don't know, I don't remember exactly what they measured, but we should fish that out. But it's maybe not a bad idea where you pick 20 spots, and every year you measure some of those things. I mean, it will measure things beyond us, you know? I mean, you won't be able to isolate the impact perfectly of what we do versus what happens, but it will tell you where things get better or worse, which is really ultimately what you're trying to do. So that's actually, I like that.
Feedback for us and the public.
That's a great idea.
In terms of protecting drinking water, they must have some idea
Of what's coming through.
what's coming in, so they know what they have to do
Well,
for
actually,
what goes out.
I've tried to ask about that, and I haven't been able to get an answer. That the treated water tests are posted on the town website. And I haven't tried very hard, just casually asking. But I thought under this SPGA,
It would be, Gene, you know what we might want to do is wait till after town meeting and invite the DPW director in to come in and talk to us. He will be here when we when we do, as part of the town meeting prep, the articles that are, we have to opine on a lot of the town meeting articles. And so he'll come in probably, and we'll say we want to talk to him about it after that. That's a great idea. I like that, yeah. So, thank you, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Second.
So, motion made, seconded, all in favor? Aye, okay.